Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. It is me, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ of the Martinezes. Hello,
That's
DJ.
me. Hello, sir.
It's good to see you, buddy. Also joining me tonight is my son, Jason.
That's me.
Because here in a little bit, Jason and I are going to talk about some con experiences we had this last weekend. So when I had him to come in with us tonight, blah, blah, blah. And also tonight we have a special guest, first time on the program, a longtime viewer and patron who used to work as a PA in Hollywood. And he's going to tell us about some of his experiences with that. It's just chatting about experiences tonight. It's Ian Nixick. Greetings, Ian. How you doing, man?
I'm doing just spectacular. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here. We've been talking about doing this for a few months, and I've been having kind of deja vu because it's a lot like a few years ago when I first had DJ on, because DJ was an extra on. See, I just interview people that are like in and out of like Hollywood things, not like people with big Hollywood careers. Just I was there.
Yeah.
Ian, I wanted to. Sorry. Where was I going with that? Oh yes, I think maybe the second thing I ever did with DJ was his talking about his experiences on Homecoming, and he never did anything else. He wasn't on any other sets or anything, but he became the mysterious welder.
It's a one and done.
Say it again.
It's just a one and done.
Yes, but legendary. Ian, I wanted to ask you. So you said you used to do that, and not too long ago, Ian told me that he worked on sets like Cobra Kai and She-Hulk, and so obviously we're gonna have questions, but I want to ask you.
You'll get some answers.
just right out the gate. Yeah. What NDAs do you have to break in order to even talk to us about this?
I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible. With mostly a lot of names, but I have plenty of like innocuous set experiences that I'm sure Marvel doesn't care. Like,
cool. Exciting.
Like they know a lot of people didn't like it at this point. Like it's not.
Yeah, I mean the bad news, obviously, if you got in trouble on this program, is that you violated an NDA and you could get in trouble and get sued. The good news for me is that it means somebody watched the program.
Yeah.
So that's good. But right out the gate, I just wanted to ask you, and then later on we'll interview you. And Ian has prepared something. He's gonna give us some life advice based on his time on sets. But Ian, I wanted to ask you just right out the gate. You used to be a PA on sets. Why don't you do that anymore?
My sanity mostly.
Oh wow.
I kind of moved. I grew up. I'm back to where kind of the place I grew up. I grew up outside of Chicago in Northwest Indiana, also known as the region. Most notably, just being famous for A Christmas Story, which I can't stand. But no.
Oh yeah, you and I are gonna get along really well. I don't like that movie either.
I mean, I don't hate it, but I mean, it's just one of those like, oh, it's the one thing we're not. Okay, whatever.
That's like the Wizard of Oz here.
Yeah, and can I mean, but you have Superman too. Although I guess I technically have the Gotham City with Chicago, but anyway. I moved to Georgia. My folks were kind of planning on moving there anyway, and they're like, hey, I mean, you want to come stay with us? I mean, we're gonna be in a rental unit, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure, what the heck, and. I almost immediately, I mean, I'll get into that later, but for the better part of a couple of years, I was working pretty ferociously, 10 to 12, sometimes 16 hours, most,
wow.
6 days a week. And some other things that happened in my life that it just got to the point where I'm like, I'm 700 miles away from most of my friends, like, and whatnot. Like, I just need some stability in my life, and I moved back, and the library that I worked at gave me my old job back. So, like, yeah. Not to say that I don't do any film related things at all, but yeah, that was mostly my sanity, which we'll get into.
Well, that's understandable. But I'm sure there were good times too.
There are plenty. Yeah, no, one specifically involving She-Hulk that just kind of made the whole thing like all worth it. It was great.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll get into that a little bit later. Thanks a lot for joining us. If you're watching live right now, thanks for looking at this after the fact as well. We really appreciate you. As always, we're going to take your questions as much as possible tonight. It might be a little bit less Q&A than usual, but we'll make sure and take questions later, especially for Ian. And if you have regular Captain Logan Show type questions that you want to throw out, super chat or otherwise, make sure to aim them at DJ Martinez, at Hatman. He'll answer any of these things and more. DJ, what is on your hat right now? I've been trying to read this ever since we got on the call.
That's just a letterbox logo, sir.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's the letterbox.
I couldn't tell if it had something to do with your channel, or do you have merch for your channel yet?
No, I do not. I think that would go over like a lead balloon. My tiny little channel. I don't think anyone would want to buy anything, but maybe someday. Who knows? Who knows?
But I don't know. You make nice logos. It might be cool to at least have like a shirt and a hat.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, I think you should consider doing that, because I mean, like, if I want to make a shirt, I have to hire DJ Martinez. If DJ wants to make a shirt, he is DJ Martinez.
That's true. I cut out the middleman entirely.
Yeah, you're like, it'd go over by like a lead balloon. You're the person that made all this stuff for hours.
Well, I'll take that under advisement. I'll take it to the Lord in prayer and see what he says. Bounce it off him first.
So we've got kind of a dense show tonight, and we're only going to broadcast for about an hour, as we have been the last several weeks. We'll get back to 2 hours in the not-too-distant future, hopefully. By the way, next week is show 300.
I just noticed that. I was looking over at the screen. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, it'll be our 300th program, and we haven't gone twice a week in a while, so to be fair, we would have been at 300 a while back if it weren't for that. But we'll do something cool and special next week.
Yeah,
I haven't decided.
Do something cool?
I haven't decided exactly what it's going to be yet. We did rapid fire last week, so it won't be that. It'll be something else. But
Yeah.
we'll figure something out. We'll kick it around. If anybody has like a brilliant idea, feel free to throw it out. I'm between a couple of things right now, but we'll kick it around and
we can get all oiled up and just wear loincloths and like just kind of scream at each other and run around.
Well, that's an idea. Now, the couple things I was thinking about, that wasn't one of them, but I'll put it on the list.
I still haven't seen that movie. That's what it is. It's just me watching 300 for the first time.
One of the we'll just scream Sparta over and over again. One of my ideas right now is the both of us getting wading pools and broadcast from wading pools, so that we'll have finally technically swam on camera.
It's not open yet, so I would just have to I could get in like the kiddie pool in my neighborhood.
Well, that's what I meant, like a wading, but not the municipal swimming pool, just a little kiddie pool.
I gotcha. Just a little inflatable one. But I'll just sit cross-legged in it.
DJ doesn't know what a wading pool is.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so like I said, we'll get to as many regular things as possible, but I don't know how much of that we'll have a chance to do tonight. Let's go ahead and get right into Planet Comic-Con stuff. Actually, Mutale's got a super chat right away, and so he doesn't have to wait 45 minutes. Maybe we should just answer that very briefly. So DJ, would you read that? We'll answer that, and then we'll get into Comic-Con stuff. Go ahead.
Sure thing. Mutale 35 South African ran. If there was a multiverse with multiple Captain Logans, do you consider yourself the Prime version? Also, have you seen the Crow remake trailer?
So I will.
Song is in full effect tonight. Wow.
Ian's head just exploded. Did you see that? I'll answer that second thing first. I did see the Crow remake trailer.
And there was a trailer.
Yeah, and it looks about like I expected. Maybe even a little worse. It looks like Blumhouse made it.
Ugh.
It looks kind of painful. And I never want to judge a thing before I've seen it, but I don't want to see it. Yeah, it looks rough. I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm resisting that. I wish I didn't have to go. It being
they take the monkey's advice.
It being a superhero thing. Yeah, I did a video years ago with my stuffed monkey, the monkey, where he sang a song, "Don't Remake the Crow," and it's finally happening. They finally gotten through that and gotten out of development hell, unfortunately, and remade the Crow. I don't think that's gonna make any money. I don't know who's gonna want to go to that. even just based on that trailer, there's not a lot of style and panache with that. It looks like kind of a, in some ways it looks like it's trying to go its own direction, but in a really unimaginative kind of way. Like, it reminds me a lot of the Flatliners remake, or which was really phoned in and totally nothing, and I wanted to leave 5 minutes into that, or the Poltergeist remake. It looks like one of those.
For Firestarter.
And if Firestarter is a good call, yeah, it's like that. If they cast a guy who kind of looks like the Joker kid from Gotham, but is dressed up like the Joker from Suicide Squad with all the tattoos, it's like that. It's like that kid doing a Jared Leto.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
And yeah, Nicholas Bodo, I'm with you. Like, Bill Skarsgård's cool, but I doubt that movie's gonna be any good. Maybe it'll surprise me, but I don't want to go to that. And I also feel like I saw the whole thing because it's one of those trailers that is linear and kind of tells you everything.
Yeah.
You've
And I
already
mean,
seen the movie.
It's the story of the Crow just now, which kind of immediately makes it lamer. But anyway, I don't know. That's one of those things that like nobody asked for, nobody needs. It's like you really gotta win me over. People don't like it when you say this thing is like unnecessary or didn't need to be made. Like, people will immediately retaliate and say, well, nothing needs to be made. Well, but you want to feel like it did when you see it. You want to feel like it added something to your life. Like, that's what that means. And just based on that trailer, it doesn't look like one of those. Okay, I talked more about that than I was going to. If there was a multiverse and multiple Captain Logans, do you consider yourself the Prime version? I don't know. There's probably
Into the Captain verse.
probably not actually. There's probably like a cooler, more successful Captain Logan out there somewhere.
Captain Logan, India.
But then is that the But then, like, is that the Prime version, or am I the Prime version because I'm like the normal, like, regular blue collar,
Right,
doing
normal
okay,
one.
but not like super famous. Everybody knows who I am, Captain Logan. Because like, when you look at something like Spider-Verse or even the finale of the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, it's not like the Prime Spider-Man is the one in the metal suit that's like Tony Stark famous. So yeah, maybe so. Maybe I would be the Prime version.
Or you're the Miles. You're like the mistake. Spoiler alert. I haven't seen that film yet.
Wow.
True.
You
I'm
weren't
not gonna
supposed
sleep tonight.
You weren't supposed to be a captain.
I'm gonna rethink my whole existence. Yeah. Anyway, apologies for the self-indulgent question that we had to answer, and now let's get into Planet Comic-Con.
Now the conclusion.
So Jason, did you have a good time at Planet? We went Sunday,
Yeah.
and talk about some of the highlights.
The highlights.
So Planet Comic-Con is our big convention out here. It's bigger every year. I'll say this real quick. It's in the Power and Light District, downtown Kansas City, at our big convention center, and it's basically outgrown that building now, and there's not a bigger building we can put it in, so it's just. It's just gotten insane. And apparently Saturday was so bad. I didn't go Saturday. And I'm not sure why it was so much bigger this year, because I thought the guest list was a little bit lackluster compared to what it's been in time past. And a lot of the people that a lot of us were really excited to see canceled at the last minute, or were only able to be there like one day. The main reason I wanted to go was Keith David, and he ended up canceling Saturday, Sunday, and was only going to be there Friday, and I couldn't go Friday. So I went anyway because I'd already bought tickets, and they're non-refundable. But I saw a thread on Facebook where some people were pissed that they couldn't get their tickets refunded because he was the only reason they were going. So there was some of that going on this year. But anyway, despite all of that, it was so packed Saturday apparently that people were complaining and suggesting that they should start capping off the ticket count. Like that's how bad it was. And people that got there on time and stood in line till like 3 p.m. was what I was hearing. So I'm glad I didn't go Saturday. And Sunday was pretty busy, but I don't think any worse than I've seen it. But anyway.
Yeah. So highlights. Well,
Speaking of the microphone.
well, so there were some pretty cool booths with art and merch, but we went to a panel that was a Batman TAS panel with Dan Reba and Poison Ivy and
Yeah, the
those
extras who
guys.
played Poison Ivy. One of these things was not like the others.
It was really weird.
They had 3 producers and storyboard artists, and then the actress that played Poison Ivy. And she was great, but it was an odd mix of people. But yeah, Alan Burnett was there, and Dan Reba, and I forget the third guy, who was a name I didn't recognize. But that panel was wonderful. They put it on top of the big comic panel that I wanted to go to, and I ended up going to the Batman panel instead because I hit it off with Dan Reba earlier in the day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to his panel, screw it, because he was super cool and fun to talk to. And so they had another panel on top of it with Kevin Eastman and Mark Waid and Chris Claremont. And I think Palmiotti was the 4th guy on that panel, and I would have liked to have gone to that, but they put it. Why did they do that? They put them on top of each other.
And it was a very random panel.
We had a good time. It was a good convention. I'm just complaining about this convention now. We really did have a good time, but there were a couple of things that I thought were a little bit off. That were kind of messed up with it. And I haven't been since before COVID.
Yeah,
It's been a long time since we've gone on that con.
it's true.
I
What, like 2018?
Yeah, I think it's been that long.
It's crazy.
Maybe even 17. I think 18.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we got to see guys from animated series. And what did you get out of the panel? What did you learn anything cool that you didn't know already?
I learned some stuff that's escaping me now. So maybe nothing. No, I mean, I didn't know. Obviously, I hadn't heard any interviews with those guys before, so I didn't know about any of their anything they did previously before, like Super Friends and stuff. I didn't know about any of that.
Yeah, it was a lot of how they got into the business, and
Yeah.
it's always fun listening to Alan Burnett talk about that because of how frustrated he was working on Super Friends and not getting to do anything interesting, and standards and practices, and how their hands were tied behind their back, and all of that, and how much more freedom they had when he was finally allowed to have people punch people. Meanwhile, over on Fox, they still couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Strange time.
I'll show off a couple of cool things that we got at the con. So I posted this on the community tab a couple of days ago, but this is the sketch cover that I got drawn by Dan Reba. I asked him to sorry, it's a little bit washed out here, but I asked him, there it is, to do a 60s Batman, kind of Adam West style Batman, because I wanted to see what that would look like in the Batman Animated Series art style, and he did not disappoint with that. It's also really cool that, so when I say we hit it off, we talked a lot about Adam West, and in particular, his animated movies that he recorded just before he passed away. So we talked about Return of the Cape Crusaders primarily, and I was going to have him do a Phantasm, and then we got into that, and I was like, okay, Dan Reba, draw me a 60s Batman. And he was like, "Why don't do likenesses?" And I was like, "Well, I don't want you to do a likeness. I want you to do that suit and a comparable facial expression in that style." And he was like, "Okay, that sounds cool." And he was like, "I'll put a Batarang in there. He'll be about to throw it." I'm like, "That's great." So he drew that from memory because he couldn't get internet on his phone in that building. We were all having a hard time with that all day long. And so, guys, he got that neck right from memory. Well, that's spectacular.
That's crazy.
That he remembered how it ties at the bottom. I was really impressed with that and excited to see that. The Batarang is a little small, but other than that, he nailed it.
Yeah.
If only you had brought cardboard Adam West with you like you do to every other con.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. Well, they were doing prop checks, see it. I didn't really want to stand in the line for the prop check. So
Yeah, he's a hassle. Bringing him along. He's funny, but he's a hassle.
he's also got water damage on the
Yeah,
bottom
he's
now.
Water damaged.
Oh no,
I forgot you took him to cons. I guess you
Michael
did do that.
Michael Keaton's right over there. Don't say that.
No,
I can't trust you with him.
DJ's making crap up like he always does. I never took that to a con.
I thought you did.
No, I never did that.
He's putting things in my brain.
Yes.
He's creating a singular Mandela effect all by
No.
just for you. So yeah, that was really special. I'm starting to collect sketch covers more and more. This is what I tend to like to do when I go to cons. And I've got 4 now, and I usually get them by people. I've got 5 sketches before that are on comics, and I tend to get them from local people that aren't names but are really talented. And because A, they're cheaper, and B, I can get them in color cheaper. But also it's just fun to be surprised by people that you see their work and you like it, but you don't really know what they're gonna do. But then Dan Reba had a sketch cover just sitting on his table, and I was like, "Oh, are you actually doing sketches today?" And it just opened, so he had time, and he was like, "Yeah, do you want something?" And he told me his prices, and I was like, "That's a little steep, but I don't care. I'm gonna go ahead and do that." So it was worth it. It was awesome. And then I wasn't gonna buy any prints this time because I have no place to put them anymore. But I bought a print from Phil. What is his name?
Moy.
Phil Moy, thank you. From one of my favorite Powerpuff Girls episodes, Super Zeros. I had to go see Phil Moy just to show him my tattoo that I have based on his art from a con like 20 years ago. And I sent him a message when I got that, my bubbles, that's my Mojo bubbles. And he thought it was cool that I got that. He called me a real fan. And then but I wanted to see him in person and show it to him. And I was gonna feel kind of weird just going up to him at his table and just showing him my tattoo. So I bought this because this was actually a thing that I was considering trying to find somebody to do a sketch cover for, specifically these outfits. And he happened to have that sitting there, so I did that. Phil Moy did some cover art for the Powerpuff Girls DC series back in the early 2000s. And he hasn't drawn Powerpuff Girls in a long time, at least very often, but he still has prints at his table for that stuff. And so we reminisced about Powerpuff Girls a little bit. But then the kind of big celebrity experience we had was with Chris Claremont. Yeah.
I also got something too.
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't know if you brought that with you.
Yeah, I didn't bring my print that I got, but
yeah, you also got a print from.
It's up on my wall, but
from a manga you like.
Yeah, I got a Spy Family print.
Spy Family, that's
but but I also got this pocket watch. That is a NES pocket watch. Because I've always wanted a pocket watch.
I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's an NES controller on a pocket watch, which is pretty cool.
It's very cool.
So Jason and I stood in line for about half an hour to see Chris Claremont, and it was, like I said, kind of a legendary experience. So I had him sign. I was between a number of issues. I have a lot of Silver and Bronze Age and Uncanny X-Men. And actually quite a bit more than I realized I had. I knew I had this, but there were some other issues where, I was thinking about maybe a Dark Phoenix cover or something. And this was like the obvious thing, but it being me, and also considering that we're going to be reviewing or doing the reviewing commentary for Days of Future Past in a couple of weeks, I said, you know what, I guess I will go ahead and bring Uncanny 141. So I got him to sign that. And I also brought with me, not for him to sign, but just for him to look at, a Star Trek book that he wrote back in '92 called Debt of Honor, which I happen to have a hardcover for in my Eagle Moss collection. And a lot of this stuff I haven't read because a lot of Star Trek comics are just not great, and I haven't gotten around to them. And this piqued my interest. I was looking through these the other day, and some of this movie era stuff is pretty decent. So I popped this open. I was like, who wrote this? Oh, it's Claremont. So I started reading it. And then it occurred to me that I was, going to see him at the con. So I was like, Actually, this is part of the reason I decided to go ahead and stand in his line, because I wanted to see his reaction when he saw this again, because it's not a thing that comes up very much. But this is one of the kind of, in Star Trek circles, like, beloved miniseries and a graphic novel, however you want to put it. And it takes place over, it kind of goes back and forth, so it starts like just after Voyage Home, and then it goes back to Obsession and a couple of other TOS episodes, and it's kind of non-linear, and it's really good and it's shockingly cinematic. And anyway, he signs Uncanny 141, but I've got this sitting there, and kind of as predicted, he picks it up and starts thumbing through it. And I also went with Vince, and Vince told me that he saw Claremont the day before and brought a single issue that was published in the 80s that was like a SNL Marvel spoof thing that had like Belushi and some different SNL actors and characters in it. And Claremont, Vince said, picked his book up and just started reading it. And like didn't even say anything for a while. He was just reading it. Well, he did the same thing with this, and then and Vince's story was really funny. I made fun of Vince after because I was like, okay, Vince, your story was good, but mine was better, and you guys will hear it in a second. But Vince's story was really good too because he goes Claremont picks up this book and says, this is the most valuable thing I ever wrote, and Vince was like, why do you say that? Because he knows that it's not real valuable and hard to get. And Claremont was like, because they'll never reprint this because of how impossible the licensing would be. And then Vince looks it up again later, and it's like $12 on eBay. It's not real hard to get. Claremont starts looking at this, and keep in mind the line is still pretty long, and there's people waiting behind me, and Chris Claremont looks right at me, and he goes, DC effed up the release of this book, and he looks like livid about it. He's like they effed it up. And so he starts telling me the publication history of this book and how, despite the fact that it sold really well, they wouldn't put it in a second printing, and it pissed him off. And then after that, and he was really nice to me, but he wasn't holding anything back about anything. And he goes on as if he's in a YouTube video. Like, I think at some point he kind of forgot that there was like a person standing there listening to him, and we had a little bit of back and forth, but for the most part, he spent, and I'm not exaggerating this time frame, he kept me for 20 minutes with a line that long. Maybe it was 15. Mm-hmm. It was somewhere between like 15 and 20. And he goes off and just says every thought he's ever had about Star Trek. He kept calling Voyage Home Sitting on the Edge Forever, which was really funny. I had to correct him. I was like, you mean Voyage, like Star Trek 4, right? He's like, oh yeah, that. And then later he was trying to say, was it Menagerie?
It was Menagerie.
And then he went back and said, Chris Claremont thought everything was Sitting on the Edge of Forever, but it was hysterical because he starts going off about how he was very opinionated about Star Trek. TNG is boring from the beginning, but all the way through. And okay, so Picard lives out a whole life on some random planet. Who cares? Inner Light is a lot of people's favorite episode of TNG, and he just goes, yeah, who cares about that? Riker should have had a beard from the beginning, and my favorite, the only Star Trek thing that has been worth watching since the original series is Galaxy Quest.
This sounds like it would have been a great YouTube video. Should have had Jason recording.
I wish we could have recorded it.
Yeah.
What am I missing? The only thing he said to us about X-Men is that the Hickman stuff doesn't go anywhere.
He talked about Picard and how he thought the characters were good, but they didn't do anything with them, and anything they did with them was kind of crap. So,
and the Romulan plot the first season is stupid.
Yeah.
which it is.
And he was saying that the new Trek writers should go back to Galaxy Quest and take notes.
Yeah, that's what he said. And he was like, I kind of wish Galaxy Quest had gone to series, except they said everything they had to say. He also told me, because I told him I thought his Trek book here was so good it would have been cool if he had a whole run on it, and he just kept shaking his head. He was like, nah, I never would have done that. And I was like, why? And he said, because I had exactly one story to tell with Star Trek. And I asked him how big of a Trek guy he was, because his understanding of continuity and like references and Easter eggs and stuff were really sophisticated, and it kind of felt like his X-Men, just the attention to detail. It was like if he was the guy who came up with Star Trek in the first place. It was really impressive, and he was really dismissive about it. He was like, I mean, I watched all the episodes when they were on, and I was like, I don't know, you know your stuff like an avid Star Trek fan. Anyway, it was wild, and people behind us were angry. And I kind of felt bad, but like, what was I supposed to do? Just be rude and leave? And ultimately, I ended up having to dismiss myself. He would have kept talking if I had let him. He just kept me as a captive audience. And so for about 5 minutes, he just kept me and wasn't signing anything for anybody. And then he started signing again, but he kept talking to me. And there were a couple people that made eye contact with me that were just boiling. And I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So like, it was amazing, but I also kind of felt bad.
Yeah.
How awkward was that?
It was a little. I can't believe he started just signing things, and he was like, I can multitask.
So I paid for, and his signature's not expensive. He only charges $15. I paid for this, and then and so like this was not a signature I paid for, and I just wanted him to look at it. But he signed this also, which was really cool of him. Like while he was talking, he just went to a page and was like, "Oh, I guess I'm signing this also." So yeah, that was great. That was one of the wildest experiences I've had with a creator.
Mm.
Would have been a better story if you got in a fight with one of the people behind you.
Is that what you were waiting for?
I was hoping.
You were waiting for me to be escorted out?
I was hoping for Jason to use the martial arts that Jason taught him at the Power
Morphicon.
And then he was going to defend you. And it was going to.
I was so glad you were there for that.
Yeah.
Because Jason's a giant animated X-Men fan. And before we got to Claremont, I was like, Jason, think of a question to ask him. And Jason's like, I don't really know what to say. I don't know what I would ask him. And I don't know that you would have gotten a chance.
Well, the thing was, I knew that he would probably talk about anything that I asked him for like at least 5 minutes. And so if you wanted to show him your thing, then like, you know.
Well, and then after that, you didn't want to piss off anybody behind us anymore.
Right.
Anyway, so there's a couple con stories for you. We're already half an hour into the show. DJ, why don't we knock out these super chats, and then we'll let Ian talk about his PA experiences. Go ahead.
All right.
The word of the night is experiences.
E is for experience. T-Edge1, another E word, would having... This is okay, I'm going to read this as is, so don't hate the messenger. Would having the Thing be impulsive when he was Torch's age be a good idea from a story point, and Mr. F be too compromising and Doom too rigid? You rock.
Yes. Would having the Thing be impulsive when he was Torch's age? So is the idea that you do a flashback story, or that he is that age when he first gets powers from the cosmic wave? Like I don't really know what the concept is here.
Yeah, it would either be an Elseworlds thing, or it would just be like we go back and tell a story from their like teenage years, I guess. Because he also says Mr. Fantastic being too compromising and Doom being too rigid. So I guess we get a teenage story from like all of them.
Oh,
each of them, except for Sue, because We don't need to see what she was like as a teenager. Bleh.
Yep, I guess not. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could tell a present day story where giving us some of that information to inform them now would be interesting, but just going back and doing like a paralleling flashback story of this is what they were all like in high school, like that doesn't really appeal to me. But and having not read a ton of Fantastic Four, I don't know how well those characters are drawn at that age. Like already, I'm sure there's stuff. Like the idea that Ben Grimm would be like a hothead or just irresponsible or impulsive in his youth, like Johnny Storm is sometimes portrayed, would not be shocking to me.
Yeah.
Maybe not like get in a fight with Nausicaans and get a artificial heart impulsive, but
Right. You're dead and I am God.
you're not God. Anyway, that's
Maybe not
as
go to a
insightful
nightclub
as I've
the
got
roof
right
on
now.
fire.
But any other thoughts on that?
Nope.
Yeah, I got no stake in Fantastic Four, so like.
Yeah. We got another one from Mutale. Would you rather see a Tick movie directed by Zack Snyder or Michael Bay?
I really want to see a Zack Snyder Tick movie.
I think the answer by
Gritty Tick.
default between Snyder and Bay for literally anything you could say is going to always be Snyder. Like that always sounds more interesting to me than Bay. Because Snyder can surprise you. You really don't entirely know what you're going to get.
Well, I want
If you were to decide to adapt something, like he's got his hallmarks, right? Bay, you kind of know what you're gonna get. Like that's with Snyder, you have certain things he's always going to do, but as far as the way the story is, like what the story is, that is a complete crapshoot. Anything could happen there, and neither one of those is going to be what you want. So you might as well get the interesting train wreck.
Well, and I mean, at least Tick isn't like a super like open world kind of thing. So like his thing where he just kind of encloses everyone in this one space.
Where it looks like he shot it in a living room.
Yeah, it would work okay for Tick than Superman.
He's got to jump
or
around on
Batman.
rooftops and stuff.
Yeah, but like, I mean, he did that stuff fine in Watchmen, so I don't know.
Yeah, and to Jason's point, I mean, Tick does tend to be like pretty talky.
Yeah.
As like even being a superhero thing, like you can do it more action driven, but a lot of the time it gets kind of sitcom-y. Snyder directing a sitcom also sounds hilarious to me, and you can probably get away with not doing as much establishing shots and stuff with the Tick than with some other things. But yeah, Bay so Bay's gonna make a like a big action spectacle thing with the Tick. Like I don't even know what that looks like.
If you could somehow do like it was made as kind of a prank on him. Like if you could have him make it and shoot it like a Zack Snyder movie, but it was completely written by somebody else and somehow he didn't get to see the script, it could be hilarious.
No, it could, absolutely.
But there's no way he would do that.
That's why I like this idea.
Stuff.
Michael
Maybe
Bay
But yeah,
would
with Bay
be
it would
like-
just be a disaster movie, right?
Yeah.
See, I would argue that Bay might actually be more qualified because, especially like in the first Transformers movie, there's that whole like, was it like 15-minute, like 20-minute unnecessary scene where what's her face like goes to what's his name the guy from Blackish, like the secret coder guy, because there's only one guy that can break that code, and it's just
Anthony
like
Anderson?
his grandmother and brother like arguing with each other. Like, I don't know. Like, both are gonna be bad, right? So I mean, I don't know.
Well, I
Bay's-
think in both directions, like DJ said, you have to not let them have any decision on story at all.
Yeah.
Because Bay's comedic sensibilities would be completely wrong for it. And I don't know if Snyder has anything akin to comedic sensibilities.
Snyder could really I could see for
Brilliant sentence.
Thanks.
if I could pick any episode for Snyder to recreate as a Snyder movie, because it'll be a full-length movie, like it'll be a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
Because it's Zack Snyder. It would be Proto-Clown, right?
It would be Proto-Clown or it would be Omnipotus.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But then Bay would be okay for Omnipotus too.
Bay
because
would be good for Omnipotus, yeah. Or Tick versus the Tick.
Anyway, moving right along. We got another one from Tom, and then Tommy. Let's just go ahead and knock these out real fast.
Sure. I'm just trying to think of a Zack Snyder joke, and I can't, except for like the owl climax joke in Watchmen. T-Edge won $5.
Okay, I've got one. Snyder would he would shoot the entire movie through a ViewMaster.
He would too.
Give him any ideas?
And then to transition between scenes, it would just he would just click the side of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it would be like Ang Lee's Hulk, where the scenes would transition with.
Yeah, exactly.
Be great.
Brilliant.
T-Edge won. Very, very excited about this. He says, Cap's wearing a Pokemon shirt. Let's get this super chat to 1,000 likes. You're the best on YouTube, Cap. So kind of all over the place there.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, he really gets a lot of unrelated thoughts all in at one time.
I like stream of consciousness super chats. It's great.
Yeah, it's like a letter without the PS. Yeah, a couple people were making a big deal out of my wearing a Pokemon shirt. I'm not even a Pokemon fan. I don't even know who all the Pokemon on my shirt are. I bought this years ago because my kids like Pokemon, and I have set up.
I can only see Pikachu.
Well, I'll show it in a second. I've put all my shirts up now where I can get at them more easily, so I'm cycling through them, and I'm wearing shirts I haven't worn in a really long time. So
well,
that's why
it's nice
because
it's an XY shirt, and those have like the best starter Pokemon.
Time for spoken like a true Gen Z. Time to do another Caps t-shirt collecting video. Now that they're easy to get to.
I might do that at some point. I would do it differently than the last one.
Oh, you wouldn't put. Oh, that was the best part.
I'm not gonna wear them all at the same time. I stretched them out too much.
Oh, no.
So yeah, there's Fennekin and Froakie and Pikachu and the guy that likes those snacks. And I'll think of it.
Snackamon?
No. I can't remember.
Okay, moving right along.
Moving on. Mutale back again. Thoughts on Snyder again, saying if Batman doesn't kill, he will become irrelevant. Also, if DC gave you 5 minutes to pitch a new Batman foe, what do you come up with?
Let me take that second one first. Jason, does anything immediately come in mind to mind of like a motif or a theme for a Batman villain we don't have?
You still thinking of that Pokemon?
We don't have like a psychotic chef in Batman lore.
Yeah.
I think Batman could do with a psychotic chef.
The Bat Catcher.
The bear.
So it's
So it's like a rat catcher, but
right.
he catches bats.
Right.
But
So,
rat catcher is already a Batman villain.
Right, but there's Bat Catcher. But he's got
And Penguin comes in and he's like, "That's a bat."
He's got like a net, right? And he like catches bats, and then he finds Batman, and then he like puts it over his head, and then like punches him. I don't know.
Rats are rodents, Doctor. Really? I didn't know that.
I think we should bring back Vince's old suggestion from years and years and years and years ago with pressure cooker. He could be a chef.
Oh wow, I don't even remember that.
Oh, you did a GNN about trying to come up with new heroes and villains, and he came up with pressure cooker
I
and
don't even
trapper
remember that.
keeper.
You realize
I
we
remember-
have 5,500 videos on the channel, right?
I remember the video game one, but I didn't
Yeah.
remember you guys did one for Heroes and Villains.
That one always stuck with me, but I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Ian, do you have a Batman
Brandon-
villain motif?
This is. You
He's
know,
looking at-
I honestly think Michael Fassbender's like look in that new David Fincher movie, The Killer, could be interesting. because he purposely dresses, as he says, like a German tourist. So he's got like the white safari hat and like the suit with like the black like Hawaiian shirt underneath, like, and he's, you know, he dresses like a tourist and he's a hitman. I don't know.
That sounds like an Alan Grant idea.
Yeah.
That sounds like a late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, absolutely.
But like a one-off villain.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, he'd be like Film Freak or something, right? Where we'd use him one time, and then when we bring him back, we make fun of the fact that he's not worth bringing him back. Yeah. And then Snyder saying if Batman doesn't kill, he'll become irrelevant. Snyder says a lot of really out of touch, odd things that make it clear that he's either never read or never understood a comic book.
Or he's just insane.
I didn't see exactly that quote. I know he's come back recently, and I didn't read the whole interview, so that's probably part of it. Somebody sent me something the other day about him coming back and saying his goofy thing again about how fans don't want to see their heroes flawed, and so people's problem with his Batman killing is that Batman has to be made too perfect in order not to kill, and he's not understanding that the problem was inconsistency and the movie not even knowing that Batman is killing. Like that wasn't the issue. Like the issue isn't that Batman needs to be too perfect. And then like I don't know, has he seen the Batman? Because that is a deeply flawed Batman that, you know, might gets dangerously close to maybe killing or could, and it also doesn't care for a good long time if he lives or dies. I don't know, and he also acts like we've never told stories where Batman accidentally kills, which we absolutely have done. I don't know, a pretty decent amount.
Well, and there was also with like the Batman Dracula trilogy, right? Like, doesn't he get like turned into a vampire in what, book 1 or 2, and then like the next like couple of books is like everybody trying to stop him because he's just, you know, killing everybody, like because he's got the thirst.
Yeah, but see, Ian, I've never read that because I don't like to see my heroes deconstructed.
Well, and he accidentally kills someone in like all 3 Nolan films, so you're not doing anything new, Snyder. Like, why?
Yeah.
The worst thing is people who are deconstructing things that don't even need to be deconstructed. Like, you're acting like it's the first time we've seen it, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's fine. You don't need to do it.
It's all we ask.
You know, it's exactly the same problem as you want a writer to understand like grammatical rules of storytelling and just like basic 101 how effective stories are told, right? You before they start breaking the rules. And this is exactly that, where but it's not just about rules, it's about knowing like tropes and patterns and things we've done too often before you start trying to subvert expectations. Because some of these guys like just aren't into this stuff enough to even know. So they know like the classic golden age. Like, are you coming back or?
Yeah.
Okay.
He got bored. He's gonna go look at that Pokemon.
They know the kind of old-fashioned classic golden age expectations, which have not been the main way we've done anything in like 50 years.
Yeah, it's like all the people that are like talking about Marvel being the ones who don't kill people when like they were killing people, like Captain America and Iron Man were killing people from like their very first movies, and it was really weird. They're just oversimplifying. People like to oversimplify things.
Yeah.
Like within the relative, you know, like morality of that fictional world, like okay, yeah, no, it's, you know, like they're not super dark or brooding, you know, or like damaged or anything. It's just, you know, they established, oh yeah, like superheroes sometimes just kill people, like, and in the case of like Civil War, where, you know, you have just a bunch of people armed with AR-15s, like, you know, and, you know, tack gear, like, yeah, like it makes sense, like.
And then meanwhile, when Snyder does it, it's not thoughtful. It's just there because it's cool. Like he pretends like it's deep and he's saying something with it. and I don't know, like I've talked about this stuff a lot, but bottom line is the man, kind of like a Todd McFarlane, doesn't really know how to tell a story, and so he makes his ideas really blatant by having someone come right out and say what the story is supposed to be about, while simultaneously having really stiff wooden characters that just do things because they look cool, and then look really, really serious about it. And that equates to it's important and sophisticated.
Speaking of, Naderman in the chat just insulted your favorite movie of all time, Rebel Moon. So we're gonna have to take it up with him.
Oh no.
Hey.
That's okay. I'll send him a pop figure.
You'll have extras because you bought all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we just got another super chat. Ian, I am sorry for staving you off like this.
All good, man.
DJ, if you end up needing to leave early, if we have to go late, feel free. I want to make sure and give Ian some time to talk about PA stuff. But yeah, go ahead and read Jar Jar ads if you would, and then we'll get into that. And thank you guys for the support tonight. I appreciate you.
We did get one before that we haven't got to yet.
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
From a quick one from Mutale. Thoughts on the 2024 Oscars?
DJ, you feel this because I only know a little bit of what folks have sent me about it. I didn't watch it. I didn't see enough movies last year to care.
Oh, yeah. So we had a couple friends over to watch them with us this year, which means I didn't have to pretend to care because they were as into it as Grace is. They're like super into it. They've been watching it. So it was my friend John, who's been on my channel, and then his friend, and they've been watching the Oscars together since the 90s. Like every single year they watch them together. So they came over to our house this year. We watched them downstairs, and those three were super, super competitive, doing their ballots and everything. And I was just kind of sitting back and letting them do their thing. I don't care about the Oscars ceremony. I like what the Oscars bring. I like that they shed some light on movies that wouldn't otherwise get as much recognition. But I don't care who wins. I think it's kind of arbitrary. But they were really into it, so it was really fun to see them do it. It was a good show. It was fine. There was no violence on stage or any crazy shenanigans. It was just fine. It was fun. A little too Oppenheimer heavy for me, but what you gonna do? Everyone loves that movie. But it cleaned up. It did really well.
Yeah. I kind of had mixed feelings. I mean, I'm kind of with DJ. I don't really care about the Oscars too much. I haven't watched it since I think like 2017. Yeah, they had their chance with Logan and they blew it. But yeah, no, it's weird because my boy Christopher Nolan finally got Best Director. But like that movie also cleaned up in like every other category, and yeah, I really like that movie. But I felt kind of bad for the people that weren't really like into it as much. Because it felt like kind of a repeat of last year where it was just like everything everywhere all at once, just cleaned up everything or mostly everything. And then, All Quiet on the Western Front, like, took everything else. And then this year was like, okay, Oppenheimer, and then, Poor Things. I'm like, oh, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I was happy.
The whole point of it's supposed to be a show, right? Like,
yeah, like, I wish they would spread it around a little bit. Like, I was really happy to see Poor Things got, I think 4 awards, which was cool.
I know, yeah, Emma Stone won for Best Actress, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. She deserved it. She was great. And Wes Anderson finally got Best Director, so that was, or not Best Director, Best, well, just a short, but he finally got his first Oscar, which was cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I wish Godzilla -1 had gotten nominated for more than just effects, and I'm glad that it won that. But that was worthy of getting at least a nod for screenplay, even if it didn't get a Best Picture nod. And it kind of bugs me that didn't happen, or at least Best Foreign Film. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, well, it was a stacked year for international films, like super stacked.
Yeah,
but it was really cool that
I
they
didn't
won
watch
Best
it, so I
VFX.
didn't know that. But I would have liked to have seen that get at least 1 or 2 other nominations.
And I have no idea if that was because the country has to submit their film, and I don't know if Japan submitted that one or not. But yeah, it was really
the fact
cool
that it won an A
Godzilla
category means it must have, unless you have to submit it for different categories.
Yeah, because Anatomy of a Fall was up for a bunch, but they didn't submit it for France for international, so it wasn't there. So
Okay.
what won international? I can't even
Interesting.
remember. Oh, it was Zone of Interest, obviously. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Zone of Interest did really well.
Yeah. Gotta say, I was a lot happier with the best original score this year, because I don't know how All Quiet on the Western Front won against Babylon for last year.
I don't know how All Quiet on the Western Front got anything. I did not like that movie. But yeah, Poor Things won this year, right?
No, that was Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer. Yeah, that's right.
Which, I mean, it's kind of become a meme now. With what's the track? Can you hear the music? But it's good. Like, I thought they might give it to Killers of the Flower Moon because Robbie Robertson, died. I think shortly before it came out. So, yeah.
And like I said, I didn't see enough movies last year, so I don't know how to feel about Oppenheimer sweeping the way it did. I also expected that. I think everybody expected that. But I was a little mixed on that movie. Like I thought it was good. I didn't think it was 7 Oscars good, but I also didn't see anything else it went up against. So.
Oh yeah, Connor says Japan submitted Perfect Days as their entry this year, which I think is a Wim Wenders film, which everyone I've heard from says it's a brilliant 10 out of 10, like amazing movie. So that makes sense.
Well, it's one of those things. Just to go back to Oppenheimer for a second, where people in the comments are saying like, "Yay for Cillian Murphy," and yeah, but it kind of sucks that it took this long. He's had some wonderful performances, and that I guess that's an Oscar-worthy performance. But and I don't mean to be real cynical about it, but it's one of those things where I have a hard time sometimes not feeling like this movie is huge and it is kind of a cultural moment, and so they're looking at it harder, and now people are winning for that reason that should have won earlier, and so that frustrates me a little bit.
I think this is the first time Cillian's been like the lead in one of Nolan's movies, right?
Yeah,
he's usually like a smaller role.
Yeah, but he could have been nominated for Best Supporting Actors for at least a couple of other things.
Yeah,
I think he gets the amount of recognition he deserves for Inception. Like, the guy, the mark. So, but that's just me.
Well, and I think if Inception came out now, it would be more likely to get nominated than back then.
Yeah, I mean, and it did. I mean, like, it got nominated for Best Picture, and
did it? I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Was that the first year that they went to 10, or was that later?
I think that was the previous year. I can't remember. It might have been.
I was gonna say, because if you didn't get 10, that doesn't get nominated.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. So.
Okay, so we're at an hour. Like I said, DJ, if you need to get going, just let me know. But let's hear from Ian, and he's gonna tell us about being a PA. So first of all, Ian, how long did you do that? And tell us about just some of the projects you were on, and what exactly a PA does for people that are not familiar.
Okay, so I was a PA, which is production assistants, for those of you not in the know. I did that from November of 2020 to I think March of 2022. My first job was actually on They Clone Tyrone, that Netflix movie with
oh, cool.
John Boyega and Jamie Foxx and Tiana Paris. That was by far the longest, or at least the longest movie that I worked on. That had so many shutdowns due to COVID, because somebody would test positive and we'd have to just go home for like 2 weeks. That was a whole thing. I was actually that was my first job in the industry. I was not a PA, technically a PA on that movie. I was a COVID compliance officer. And that job sounds as lovely as the name implies.
That sounds really fun. I bet you had a great time doing that.
Oh, it was wonderful. I got told to, go F off like multiple times a day by a bunch of people that are already overworked and, just want a cigarette. And it was wonderful. I loved it. And the fact, that our and I will call her out by name, Shamila. Yeah, our team leader, she used to be a nurse, and she got, you know, put in charge of our team, and like kind of like established like the rules, because they were not like ubiquitous like across sets. Like each set had, like kind of had their own, you know, head COVID compliance officer, and they like set the rules based on like what they thought, you know, was necessary. And it was just ridiculous. Like you had an entrance door and an exit door, and you couldn't like enter the building through the exit door, even if you had, you know, like if you were a grip and you had like a giant stand, that you needed to, you know, get rushed to set immediately. You had to go like all the way around the building. It was nuts, and she didn't even follow her own rules. Like she's walking around without a mask, like smoking her cherry cigars. We're like, you're making us look like a bunch of idiots. Like it's like no wonder nobody listens to us. But it was good. I had you know, I mean, through shared pain, developed quite the camaraderie with you know, with the rest of the team. And it was a good introduction to, you know, some of the basic functions of being a PA. Like, ooh, I have it right here. I knew I'd remember. They're kind of jumbled up here. I don't know if you can see it on your screen right here. Getting your earpiece, because you need that to hook it up into your walkie. Otherwise, you're gonna be that guy holding your walkie up to your ear with the volume turned like all the way down so they can't hear you on stage. Don't be that guy. I was that guy once. But yeah, that was my first big job. And then after that, which leads into I had a list here. Let's see. Yeah, of the light device there. Anyway, but through that job, I got my next gig on an independent film. Called The Wake Up Call, which I haven't seen online. I think it might have screened at a festival, maybe. But that was one of the tips. You know, I said rubbing elbows is your job security. I was at lunch, and one of the extras on They Clone Tyrone just happened to sit across from me on the one seat that we had. There was only like 2 chairs per table, and we sort of hit it off. And he was like, "Oh, hey, like I'm, you know, directing this, this small independent thing, you know, would you want to be a part of that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I ended up being like an uncredited like screenwriter on that. Like I ghost wrote that thing for like $200. And then
Wow.
Yeah, that was much shorter. That was from March into April of 2021, because Tyrone just went on forever. But it was nice. I actually got to meet, bumped into Kiefer Sutherland. He was on that show for a few weeks, and I was hanging out behind stage 17 with my buddy Demetrius. And we just saw somebody come out, and he just instinctively says like, "Oh, hey, buddy." And turns out it's Kiefer Sutherland, and we're like, "Oh," like he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And went over to like the crafty table or whatever. Super nice guy. Like didn't hide out in his trailer. Kind of was actually like talking to people, just hanging out. At one of the other stages. So. And,
considering just how much that guy works, that was always the assumption I would have made about his personality. Because when you're Kiefer Sutherland, I wouldn't think you would have to work as much as he does. Like he's always got a TV show, and most of them don't end up getting popular enough to go past a second season, and he just jumps onto something else. He's constantly working.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Totally. But yeah.
Did you see Designated Survivor?
I did not. That was that one where he's the one, like everybody dies in the White House and he becomes the new president.
Yeah, he's like 15th in line and then he becomes the president. Yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah.
I like that show a lot. He plays, and it seemed pretty obvious he took it because it was so against type. He's like as opposite from Jack Bauer as humanly possible. It's fantastic.
Nice. So, yeah, no, but that yeah, that got me that gig on that independent film, which leads me to one of my other rules. I'm just gonna go out of order here and just kind of bring them up as I go, like a
Well,
comedy.
real quick before you do that, let me back you up for a second and just
Yeah,
just ask you this: how did you manage to get that first job?
See, that's okay. Okay, that's good. We'll start at the beginning. Because I kind of did it as sort of a chronological thing. My first rule, and I'm gonna say it in Jack Nicholson's voice, to quote The Departed. Rule number 1 is nobody gives it to you. You have to take it. When I was going down there, we were gonna be moving not too far away from my uncle who lived there, and he knew a guy who knew a guy, who was like, oh yeah, like I knew some guys who were like set builders, and like they're they said they're like looking for work. Yeah, I could probably totally get them in, right? I'm like, oh cool, like isn't that cool? We'll move and have some steady employment. No, that didn't happen. So it's call them up, a few weeks into being down there. It's like, hey Chris, what was that you said about set building? He's like, oh yeah, it's let me talk to the guy, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Lesson number 1 learned: nobody gives it to you. So I just went on the Georgia Film Directory. If you literally just type into Google like local, Georgia Film Directory, they have a bunch of people listed, and you can narrow said people down based on their credits or what they have listed under their tags. Specifically producers. And unit line managers. So I literally just cold emailed a bunch of people for several weeks on end. I would just like type up like 10 emails a day and send them off. And finally, Tyrone was the one that bit. Unfortunately, it was Shamila, but I mean, I guess I kind of have to give her, thank her for getting me my first job. So. But yeah, it was the strangest thing going from like moving 700 miles away, not knowing anybody, not really having a good sense of the Atlanta as a city at all, right? And then like, oh yeah, let's have you come in for an interview, meet us over at Black Hall Studios. I'm like, oh, where's that? They sent me the address, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's in southeastern Atlanta, right down the road from the local juvie, which was kind of depressing driving by. But yeah, no, I went in and the gate guard let me through, and there's a bunch of sound stages, and they interviewed me, and yeah, within a few weeks, after Thanksgiving, I was showing up to set every day, sometimes at ungodly hours, and having to get up at ungodly hours, because we lived like an hour, sometimes an hour and a half away, depending on traffic. So I get up at like 3 a.m. to be on set at like 5. Like but yeah, that's how I got in. I mean, it is one of those like those tripes like, oh, you just got to get in your foot in the door. It's not when what you know, it's who you know. But in that sense, it kind of was, at least for me. And then, yeah, once I was there, it was kind of just a game of, talking to people and like, oh, like, I hear some, this show needs some people. I can put you into contact with this person. And yeah, half the other jobs, the only reason I got She-Hulk was Micah. He was a really good guy. A guy that I worked with on Tyrone. He got called in to do it, but he had a scheduling conflict. He was already on another show. So he referred me, and that's how I got that. And it was, yeah, as simple as that. So it's one of those things that is kind of like a movie.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. They were, what was the title? It was Clover. Yeah, that was the fake title they were going with. It's like, oh, like, do you want to come and, work on this show called Clover? And I'm like, okay, what the heck is that? Like, a lot of the times, like, you don't know what you're actually signing on for, like until you're already there. Like some of the people that maybe like worked like the camera guys, like the grips and electrics, yeah, they probably know. But like if you're a PA, like you're probably just kind of hopping from job to job, and if you know somebody, like you might kind of get some inside baseball information, like, oh hey, like what is this thing,
And then years later, the wiki on a movie will say like it was under this working title for a while. And I'm probably wrong about this, but I feel like Clover is one of the ones that comes up a lot. Like I feel like I've heard that before as a working title for things.
Yeah.
They're always like one word, like really cryptic one word.
Spider-Man: Homecoming was Summer of George.
Wow, that's really
Number
random.
Wolverine's Last Kiss, which, I mean, props to them for, that title, because, I mean, probably didn't help them throw, the paparazzi off the scent for long, but, A for effort. Yeah. So
so it sounds like it was a lot of persistence in the first place, and a little bit of luck, like with everything. But I think one of the things I'm getting from that is if people want to work in that industry, it's not all in California.
No, that's the thing. Well, a lot of at least the production side. No, there's a ton of filming being done in like even before, back in the day, New York, like historically, has been like the other, just like kind of the East Coast Hollywood. That's why they have like the DGA. They have, it's actually split up into two separate things. There's DGA West, there's DGA East. Same thing with the Writers Guild. But yeah, no, there's a ton of stuff being filmed in Georgia. There's a ton of stuff being filmed in Albuquerque. There was for a little bit in Detroit, but I think they took away like the tax credits. So I think BVS filmed there. I think Transformers filmed there back in the day, and then there at least as far last time I checked, there wasn't really a whole lot going on. Yeah, no, I mean if you're looking to just get into movies or like work on set as a PA or as an extra, and you live in a large city. Even like Kansas City or like Tulsa, Taylor Sheridan, on Paramount Plus with his half a dozen shows. He's doing they're doing a lot of stuff in some more Midwestern, non-traditional cities. So it's there. I mean, it's just takes a little bit of Googling. Although I will say I won't take credit for that idea. I do want to plug. Her name's escaping me at the moment, but her channel on YouTube is Beyond Film School. She is a first AD. That's a first assistant director. And she had a video on how she broke into the industry, and that was essentially what she did. She cold emailed a whole bunch of people, and finally got like a ping back, and they were like, oh hey, like go to this building, like go up these stairs and like put your resume like in this mailbox. Like it was the way she was describing it, it sounded like a bit shady, but that's how she got her first job. I actually got a chance to talk with her. I think like the first month that I moved down, she had like oh hey, like anybody looking on tips on how to break in, like Skype with me and we'll talk. Very nice lady. So. And yeah, after that, it was kind of just a steady, like, kind of hopping from job to job to job.
How many projects total do you think you did?
I didn't projects maybe 5, because I did Tyrone, I did that independent movie, which I have a few stories about. Then I was working on a couple of commercials for just like a small like video production company. I think they changed their name, but it was for Home Depot. And I was basically a runner. I went to Hertz and picked up the vans and loaded up the stuff and drove it out to the Airbnb that they were, and just kind of did regular PA stuff. I pulled out halfway through. It was the only show that I quit. There was a Hulu movie called The Valet. It was a remake of a French movie. That was another COVID gig that I kind of begrudgingly took, because it was like a few weeks after the indie movie, and I was like, I gotta keep working, and found employment elsewhere because that was a disaster.
Yeah, it must have been bizarre starting during COVID.
Oh yeah, people were just on edge
when the whole thing's barely even functioning, and you're waiting around to see when it all gets shut down. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, on that movie, on the Valet, we had this obnoxious uh like air purifier thing that was really loud and clunky that we had to like roll around and find a way to like put in some corner of the room to be constantly like ventilating the room. And
So they
just,
ADR'd that entire movie then, right?
yeah, at least the interiors probably. I mean, we did shut it off, like during takes.
Okay.
The time, at least when I was there, I can't speak to speak to what they did after I left.
So were you there? I'm just gonna jump around a second. Were you there the duration of She-Hulk, or just for certain episodes? And then same thing with Cobra Kai, because that's a show that's still on.
Yeah. So for She-Hulk and Cobra Kai, I was what they call, at least on paper, an additional PA. The reason I am not credited on She-Hulk is because they technically only had 2 staffed PAs, and everybody else they brought on as an additional. Typically, you bring on additional PAs for when you're shooting on location and you need people to like lock up sidewalks, locking down sidewalks.
I was going to ask you like what exactly your duties were.
Yeah. A lot of the times, especially when you're shooting on location, is just making sure people don't walk in the shot. Or if there's loud, obnoxious people like shooing them away, it's like, hey, dude, we're recording, please. Do you mind? I remember on She-Hulk, we were filming downtown, in front of a courthouse. And there was some guy, like, during a take, we shoot him away as best we could, but we had to go again. And the directors there were cool. Like, they kind of understood. There's this guy walking and had, like, a couple of empty, like Campbell's, like, soup cans, like, tied to his ankles, and was, like, walking down and purposely, like, rattling them, like, as loud as he could, singing Bob Marley's, like, everything's gonna be all right. And we're like, dude, come on. Like, but, yeah. That was
they should have just worked that guy in.
Yeah. Oh, work that guy into the show?
They should have worked him in, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he would have fit in that show just fine.
Yeah, and take the crazy lady that wandered into the base camp with a knife and was like, threatening to cut people up, and security had to. Yeah, no, that was an actual thing. Yeah, and yeah, it was a little disconcerting.
DJ, it sounds dangerous where you live.
I mean, it's a big metropolitan area. I mean, I live by Chicago. I mean, it's
no, I know. I live in Kansas City.
but yeah.
I can't go downtown without getting harassed by somebody for money at least once every couple of blocks. Like,
but yeah, I don't even know where I was, going. But yeah, like locking down a set. That's part of like most of your essential duties. And even when you're on stage, which brings me to one of my points. Tribalism often rules. It is unfortunate, but it is a reality that a lot of the crew on movie sets are loyal to like their specific tribe. The Grips look out for the Grips, the Electrics look out for the Electrics, and everybody else be danged. The Electrics on She-Hulk, a couple of them were pretty cool, but by and large, yeah, I had to tell a lot of them to shut up while we were filming. I'm like, you have a pocket computer, just pull that out and scroll through doom scroll through whatever platform you're addicted to, while we're filming, please, do you mind? But yeah, that was, yeah. We didn't have too many problems with people walking through shots. I think we had one, but I mean on a smaller sound stage where you kind of, it's not open to the public. You can kind of be like, hey, stand over here and just block anybody from walking through this, through this entrance. So, but you also have some guys usually if you're working in a studio. On the bell, they have the red lights, and you flick it on and it goes, and supposed to let people know to be quiet while you're filming, right? And to let the people on the outside of the stage just know to not enter, although they often will do. In fact, I'd say most often do, which is why that scene in Babylon just like struck such a chord with me. The scene where they can't get through a single take.
No, I see why you requested that now.
Oh yeah, no, that was, I mean, without just talking about that movie. No, the real reason that movie, as imperfect as it is, like really resonated with me was because it finally allowed me to laugh at some of my pain. And was kind of tackling the question of like, I love movies, I love this art, and I was witness to a couple of really cool scenes, like kind of magic in the making. They had this big explosion and on Trilith. It wasn't for She-Hulk. They were doing it for some other thing. But yeah, the guard stopped me at the thing, and he's like, "Oh, hey, hold on a second." I'm like, "Okay." Beat, 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 beat. I'm like, "Okay, can I go?" And he's just like purposely not talking to me, right? And all of a sudden, kaboom! Like giant gasoline explosion, and
wow.
they're both chuckling, and it's like, you got him. I'm like, okay, that's you got me. That's funny. But I mean, it was cool. I mean, like I literally felt like the heat on my face. I'm like, oh wow. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, like that movie, kind of wrestling with the whole like, like loving the art form, but also just having to put up with some really stupid crap, like not being able to get through a take because of noise, like.
Well, I was going to say, having dealt with those experiences and seeing how the sausage is made, is that one of those jobs where you find yourself sometimes appreciating the actual art less, or like it's sometimes not as fun to watch movies? Like, do you ever have that?
Not really. Let
me ask you this: do you get taken out more often? Where you see the production in it, and you have a hard time getting swept up in the fiction. Like, does that happen?
I think I'm at a point to where I don't, and this doesn't bother me. I don't think I'm really ever swept up in something where I'm not ever, at least subconsciously, kind of like taking notes, for things.
Sure.
Because I mean, I have directed some short films. I do write quite a bit. That is kind of still a dream of mine. So like whenever I'm watching movies, I am just, in the back of my head taking notes, especially if it's really good. Like, oh, like I'm a student of film. I must, I must go back. I must study why this resonates with me. But no, working in the industry didn't really ruin that for me. It was kind of, I don't even know how I describe this feeling, but I was working on They Clone Tyrone, which had Tiana Paris in it. And it just so happens that the time when I was working on that was when WandaVision just dropped. And I didn't know she was in that. So I came home one night and my parents were like, "Oh, we're watching WandaVision." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll give it a try." And her character comes in. I'm like, I just saw you at work. Like,
that's cool.
So it was weird. It was kind of like that merging of like, like this fictional world that I'm seeing, or like these people that, this production that I'm seeing, with people that So I guess I was taken out like in that instance.
Sure.
In kind of the best possible way. That was kind of a cool experience. But yeah, no, I mean, like I went to film school for a couple of years, so I mean, I'm always kind of consciously, in the back of my head, like, oh, where do they place the lights, or is this a practical? Is this available?
Yeah, you were already a behind the scenes person. You were coming at it from the back forward.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, especially when like people pull off like insane oneers, to go back to Babylon, that like that 5-minute like tracking shot through the party at the very beginning.
Yeah,
that must have taken forever.
That's cool.
Like just to have like all these people, like dancing, like choreographed, and everybody knowing where to like hit their marks, and keep going. But
I want to do a oneer like that in our movie. I haven't decided where it's going to go yet.
Yeah.
But I also know that you're kind of
a
a oneer, and I know you're kind of obsessed with oneers.
Yeah.
Yes, there's going to be an orgy scene in the Superhero Rewind movie. That's how it's going to get its arc.
With all the multiverse versions of Captain Logan that we talked about earlier.
Oh,
And we said it in front of my kid too. I can't even. Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the final episode of the Captain Logan Show, episode 299. DJ, why don't you go ahead and throw out some questions for Ian?
Yeah, we got one super chat for Ian, and we also never got to Jar Jar Ed's super chats. Do you want to knock those out too?
And sorry I forgot all about those. I was just looking at the time and trying to get to Ian's interview.
I think I'm gonna go to bed.
That's totally understandable. It's getting late.
Yeah, it's getting late.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, Jason.
Yeah.
And talking to us about the con. And say bye to Ian.
Bye, Ian. Bye, DJ.
Bye, Jason.
Bye, Jason. I might be not too long behind you. But yeah, Jar Jar Ed put in 2 super chats.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and knock those out real quick, and then we'll get back to this. There is that super chat for Ian, and then there's a few questions right after that in regular chat that I want to try to get to also.
Absolutely. Jar Jar was talking about when we were talking about deconstruction. So $10. The problem is not deconstruction itself. It is whether or not you have something to say that has meaning. Zack Snyder just did it with DC and said nothing. His deconstruction was empty.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, there's some kind of surface ideas on paper that are, again, just spelled out to us in dialogue that if we fleshed out and actually explored, might have been interesting. But there's not anything to analyze. There's not anything to sink your teeth into. It's just kind of thrown at you. And there's not much beyond what Watchmen already did. Where it's like, okay, you've kind of got your who watches, at least when you're looking at Batman versus Superman specifically, like you've got your who watches the Watchers idea there again, and the there's can we trust people with too much power idea there, and it's presented like it's brand new, like Ian was saying earlier, like we've never thought of these things before, because honestly, I mean, and I don't want to be mean to Zack Snyder. I've always said this. He seems like a really nice guy who's just not like a thinking person, and those ideas probably are new to him, or at least the idea of putting them, through the lens of a story, was kind of new. And anyway, I mean, like I said earlier, I had the same thing with some of the ideas that McFarlane puts in Spawn. So he's got his I've talked about this before, but he's got his silly introduction segments at the beginning of episodes of the HBO Spawn show, and he'll start kind of explaining the ideas of what he thinks Spawn is about, and I'm like, oh, that's what you think your story's about. That sounds great. I wish you'd written that. I wish that was the story. It's not. It's kind of like that.
And then his second part is continued. Star Trek II is the most acclaimed movie in the franchise, and according to Nick Meyer, it was a deconstruction. It has more to say than BVS.
Well, and it also helps that you've got real down to earth human ideas in a movie like that are just easy for people to relate to. BVS is about these real grand ideas, again, with like, can we trust a god? And Wrath of Khan is getting old sucks. And like, do you have anything left to do or say when you get to a certain age? And like, is adventure for young people? And like that's all stuff that resonates with all of us when we get to a certain age. And I never saw Wrath of Khan as deconstruction so much as exploring some things that Star Trek hadn't had a chance to explore yet, and also making it a little bit more visceral and feeling more like what dangerous space travel might actually be like, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason that movie is remains as popular and well liked as it is. and why Star Trek has just and other sci-fi things really have just been chasing it ever since it came out, because it's all we can do now is Wrath of Khan. Ian, I don't know if you're a Star Trek guy, but
Not really. But it was some, like, the original series was sometimes on MeTV, which I'm sure breaks your heart, but yeah. So I mean, I'm not really a big fan. I don't dislike it. It's just not my immediate go-to. So I do need to watch Wrath of Khan.
it just comes up here a lot. Oh yes, that's required sci-fi viewing, even if you never watch a lot else. But anyway.
All right. Yeah, we got some questions here for you, Ian. The first one came in a super chat form from Robert Wild.
Okay.
He says, for Ian, what is your filmmaking dream job?
It is, as it sounds, writer-director, just like every other wide-eyed, hopeful young lad that goes to film school. And then, realizes that their professors are showing them Studio Binder YouTube videos in class. Yeah. That was the reason why I only went for a couple of years, because the cost was not, wasn't justified there.
Yeah, we just watched special features in my visual effects class.
Oh, that sucks.
Could have done that at home for $5,000 less.
Wow, seriously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, but no, that's pretty much from probably 9 or 10. Yeah, Inception. That was the movie that made me want to make movies. So, not saying it's the greatest movie ever made, but everybody's got to have a personal favorite, and it's mine. Although Sicario might be creeping up, but anyway. Yeah.
I see that back there. Villeneuve is still killing it.
Fucking he hasn't failed us yet. But yeah. I mean, even from like a young age, I mean, like before, like I even really considered that as like something I might want to do. I got like one of this really cheap, like probably $15 movie camera, like Jack Sparrow movie camera, for Christmas one year when I was like 7 or 8 or something, and would film my friends and I in the backyard. So before I even considered a career, so it's just kind of been something I wanted to do, and as I got into my teen years and started watching more movies than Pixar and Marvel, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I want to do. And the reason I thought I'd become a PA was to actually like get on like actual sets and see how it's done. Because while I was at DePaul in Chicago, it was pretty cool. They had I'm pretty sure they still do. They have like 3 stages at Cinespace, which is where they film like Chicago Fire and Chicago PD, those shows. And they had like a bar set there, and they got like a jail set and some other things, and they have actual equipment that you can use. So I shot like my freshman final there, and it was good. But it was like me and my buddy Aiden and Jacqueline and like our 4 or 5 actors. So it wasn't really a crew. We like the 3 of us were kind of having to do like a whole bunch of things. I was kind of, I kind of just, was the one that shot the majority of it, and Aiden kind of handled the lights, and, Jacqueline gave, some direction to the actors. So I was like, I'm watching YouTube videos like while going to school, and every time I ask one of my professors like, oh, hey, how do you actually break into the industry? I get like a blank stare. I think, like the best way to, move this dream forward is to, become a PI, just get on set and see how it's, see how it's done, and maybe work my way up. Which I will say is kind of one of the few, like, I would say outright lies. Not an outright lie, but they say like, oh, become a PA and just like work your way up the ladder. Then become a grip, then become an electric, and then become like a cameraman, and then they'll let you be a director. No, that's not how that works. If you're looking to work your way up the ladder as a PA, without getting into any one of those very specific like technical fields, and specifically joining one of those unions, the glass ceiling or like kind of the end result of that is being a first assistant director. And the first assistant director is the one that kind of just keeps the show running. They schedule things, they put out fires, they keep the director and the cinematographer and production designer kind of like on point, like, oh, hey, like, you may want 3 takes, we only have time for 2. They work with like the location managers on, like negotiating, those spaces, or looking for new ones, like sending people out to go scope out new places if like deals fall through. So that's obviously something I know people that's what they wanted to do. And by the way they conducted themselves, like they would be very good at that. I would not be good at that. That would be a very technical position. It involves yelling at a lot of people a lot of the time, which I don't enjoy, which I did have to do as a PA. On Tyrone, they sent me over to the hotel because they had a bunch of extras that were sequestered in the hotel, right? It's like, oh, you're going to be an extra on set, but you're going to be in like the same room as Jamie Foxx, right? So we're going to need to put you up there for a week, and have you test before you go to set to make sure like you ain't been, fooling around any place. And they like the production had paid that hotel, like the garage, for their security tags, like security cards, so the extras could, ostensibly go to their cars when they needed to go to set and just like tap themselves out and they're able to like get out of the garage. Well, none of the cards worked, so they just gave me the master key, and I had to like stand out there in the rain, and just wait for cars to come up and be like, "Hey, you going to the Clone Tyrone?" "Oh yeah, that's where I'm going." "Oh, okay, cool." Beep, beep them out, right? Well, they hadn't informed the guy like in the toll booth, like that's what I was doing. So he comes out here like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, letting a bunch of people out, like, like get out of here." I'm like, sorry, dude. Like, no, I got a job to do. Like, take it up with your boss." "Oh no, that ain't gonna happen." And yeah, I kind of had to get nasty with the guy and like put my foot down and like, no, like, I'm not moving. And that's not my default state. I don't like doing that. But that's the job. That's what it requires.
So do you think a lot of people that become PAs go in for the same reason and have the same kind of like disillusionment that you did?
I've known some. Yeah. I think probably about half of them probably have that same shattering disillusionment. And others are kind of like did it just for fun. I did know some guys that like, didn't have any clear aspirations to like, work their way up the ladder. That for whatever reason, like they're just wired differently than me. They enjoyed it and they're like, oh, it pays well. The hourly rate, I think I was getting paid a couple of years ago, like $12 an hour. Which, at this point, you could probably make a better hourly rate at McDonald's. But if you're working 12 hours a day, that does add up over time, especially if you're working like 6 days a week. But yeah, no, but the other half I think would be more along the lines of, because I did know some people, like Mike, he had worked like as a grip, but on like independent things, like non-union things. They wouldn't let him into that. He couldn't work on union, like union grip jobs because he didn't have his hours in, or like he hadn't joined, and like paid his dues. But no, I knew some people that were like, no, like I want to be in costumes, like no, I want to be in set deck, like, or I want to be in like in electric or something, and would be like actively talking with those guys, and like that was what they wanted to do. And hey, all the better for them. The guys that I talked to, they did seem to, enjoy it. So, weren't really big movie fans. That was the biggest disillusionment that I had. Coming to it, like this is like if you're working below the line, which means you're not a producer, you're not a director, you're not like the screenwriter, you're like part of the crew. It's a blue collar job. So quite honestly, like I probably was better prepared by working in a lawnmower shop. Like the 3 months before we left, or the year before. But yeah, no, like I worked in a lawnmower mechanical shop beforehand, and like that culture kind of, I'm glad I did, because that was like, I'm like, oh, this is like working at Terpstra's again. A bunch of guys like, like constantly smoking, like all tattooed up, like, real kind of like, like trying to be gruff. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'm not, I'm glad I did.
I was gonna say it sounds like you learned a lot about what the whole thing entails. So if you were to try to get back in a different direction, you'd probably be more prepared now.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and I learned what I needed to learn, which is like if you want to be a director, you just kind of got to be a director.
Yeah.
You got to make short films. You got to submit them to
That's what I was
festivals.
gonna say. Is if you
Learn, how to,
if you were to try
put up
to like live your dream job now, I would imagine you would just make some independent films and go to festivals with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and if not, just put them online. What's his name? Was it David F. Sandberg? The Shazam guy. Yeah, he got his big break because of Lights Out. That short that he made. I want to say that didn't even screen at like a festival. He just put it up on YouTube. And it got popular, and Hollywood was like, "Oh, we want to make that a feature film." And he made a feature film adaptation. And which, led to him making Annabelle, which then led to making him like Shazam, him getting Shazam. So
And I mean, it's real oversaturated, and that's still kind of a 1 in a million shot, but it can happen.
Yeah.
That happens for writers as well. Like I mean, for like novels and things too.
Yeah.
Because that's how the Martian happened.
Yeah, yeah, that was like it was like a blog or something that he was just like writing for fun that he like then compiled.
Yeah, he was just posting chapters on a blog.
Which, I mean, that's cool, right? I mean,
Yeah.
1 in a million success stories. So,
DJ,
I like to combine like the independent thing that I did was kind of a 1 in a million success story. Like, what are the odds that like some rando just walks up to me and and we start talking shop, and I was talking to him to something that I was writing on. He's like, "Oh yeah, you seem like you really know your stuff. Like, how's $200 sound to like rewrite my movie?" Like,
no, that's really cool.
Yeah. Like, yeah. No,
DJ, throw a couple other questions at Ian before we wrap up here.
Sure thing. We had another one. Well, of course, Day Ghost says, "Did you get to meet our gal Madison?"
Who?
I don't know who he's talking about.
From She-Hulk.
Oh, I don't know any of the names.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But then.
Yeah. Did you have any? I guess I'll just ask more broadly. Did you have any interesting run-ins with any actors on She-Hulk or Cobra Kai that we would know?
Charlie Cox. He was on set for a couple of days, and by then I was working on the catering crew. They put me in charge of the catering crew like the last week and a half of shooting on She-Hulk.
Why?
Yeah, because the other guy left. And they're like, "Oh, you've been working this for a few weeks. Like, you know your stuff, right?" I'm like, like I have to delegate. Like, that's not, But I mean, it was good. It was a good experience. But yeah, I know they needed Charlie Cox was there for a couple of days. And they didn't say his name like on the call sheet. Which I didn't get. I had to get from somebody else. Because Marvel was like really selective about like who got call sheets and like who got like sides. Which is like, like certain scenes, but they're like smaller and they're on little pieces of paper. So they just called him number 3. And I talked to a couple of people and like kind of deduced to like, oh, it's like Charlie Cox. So yeah, I brought him his lunch to his trailer. And then kind of made a fool of myself because I thought I heard the base camp PA like call my name. It's like, oh, like, hey, wait up a second. I was like, do you want me to take something or something? So I kind of leaned like halfway into like the the trailer, and he was like just kind of sitting there and was like, huh? And she was like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I thought like you needed me for something. She's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just left. And I'm like, I looked like an idiot in front of Charlie Cox, but it was fine. I didn't know he was British. Like, because I had only seen him from Daredevil. So like when I heard him like just like talking with people on set, he's like, oh, hi, my name is Charlie. I'm like, who are you? Like, but as soon as the cameras were rolling, it was like, into it. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
To watch like a performer, like like an artist like perform like that. That was really cool. Who else? We were on location at some place in Noonan. It was like this property where they did like you could rent it out for like weddings and stuff, and it had like a cottage and everything. It was and I never watched She-Hulk, but I know of some scenes. It's where they go to like the supervillain like rehabilitation like place or whatnot, where like Tim Roth is with like the big like bull guy or something. And
we watched it once and I talked over it, so I don't remember anymore.
So yeah, you're as lost as I am. But point is, Tim Roth was on set that day, and I'm like, oh, it's Mr. Orange from Reservoir Dogs. It's so cool, right? And he was a character. His personal assistant was a guy named Noah. He was a good guy. But he got production to let him bring on his younger brother Jameson. And they looked like pretty similar. And Tim Roth kept mistaking Jameson for like Noah. Would come up to him and like ask him, it's like, oh hey, I'm gonna need this, this, and this. And then would like realize like 10 seconds into like his, like giving him orders, like, oh wait, no, you're not him. So he started calling Jameson the sequel. Like he'd be coming like off of like a scene or something. And he'd like, like lock eyes with like Jameson and then do a double take. He's like, oh no, it's that freaking sequel. And it was cool. Like Jameson thought it was funny. So I mean, it wasn't cruel or like, condescending or anything. But he also refused to learn his lines that one day. So they literally had grips like in like those like chalk markers. They got like giant boards and they wrote out his lines for him on these things. And they got the grips to put him up on C-stands and post them like outside the window where they were shooting inside so he could like glance at them.
Was it because the lines were coming too late? Like, why wouldn't he memorize them?
I think so. I think that week was pretty hectic, and they were like rewriting lines, and they were. I think that scene had been like moved up, and
there was a lot of talk about that on that show.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequently, that's the story you hear with every Netflix Marvel show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was a strange occurrence. That was a funny like ooh, I met a celebrity.
Yeah,
or
no, that's fun.
Like as a celebrity. Who else? I'm trying to think. I think Charlie Cox was like the big one. I mean, like knowing that Daredevil was going to be in it. However, you felt how he was used.
Yeah, sure.
I know, and it was pretty was not satisfied. But like kind of knowing that for like a year before they like actually announced it, I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, that's a cool secret. I never got cussed out by like any actors. Like everybody that I worked with was very, very kind and very, very professional.
Yeah.
Tiana Paris especially, because they had the COVID people like stationed outside like the stages, and we would like purposely like open the doors for them, so people wouldn't, there wouldn't be like hands touching doorknobs, right? And it was kind of weird, but people got used to it. And she'd say hi to me, and I'd be like, oh hey, what's up? And it was just so weird. I mean, because like how easily you just kind of fall into like, oh yeah, they're just people. Like they're just people that I work with, like technically coworkers. Like, not these gods that that we put up on a pedestal. No.
Yeah, and of course that would happen and should happen. But then at the same time, there's also, like you were talking about earlier, the kind of different like sets of people and almost cliques that you deal with. So like they are all regular people, but they're not necessarily all treating everybody the same.
No. So and each thing's gonna have their own thing. I'm glad you mentioned that with the cliques. When I was doing the catering crew, I love the makeup people. They were very nice people, but they drove me up the wall with their breakfast, like their breakfast orders. It wasn't like single lines or even a couple lines. It was paragraphs for each person. They wanted the sandwich cooked this way, and this amount of jelly and everything. So it was always like, oh, like, like start on the makeup people as soon as like their orders. like started coming in through like the Notes app. The costumes people, on the other hand, I love those people. Not only were they really nice, they made my job so much easier because they ordered the same thing every single day. You want to know what they ordered? BLT. Perfect. I can work with that. So.
DJ, let's try to wrap up. I tried to smash way too much all into the show, apparently. But Ian, thanks a lot for all the stories, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to just absolutely make sure that you got out before we finished up? I needed to give you your own 2 hours, it sounds like.
Oh, I got plenty of stories. Yeah, so some good, some bad. And some that I could probably talk to you off camera, but yeah, like no, definitely not on the show.
Sure.
The one thing I will say, and just so happens to be the last thing that I wrote down, was, you know, find your people, make your environment fit you, and don't let your passion become an obsession. You know, it's going to be hard, especially it's a job that, you know, you're going to be working, you know, 12 to 16 hours a day. So like a lot of the days of the week, it's going to be a lot of your time. But do find time for hobbies. Do find time for friends like outside the industry. Do make time for your family. Cause it's gonna get to you and you're gonna implode otherwise. And you're going to start to hate yourself and you're going to start to question, you know, like, you know, why am I here? You know, why am I doing this? And then you're just going to be miserable. And there's nothing worse than having work nightmares and then waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and then realizing you got to drive all the way there and you're going to do it again and again and again. Like, so, yeah. Take care of yourself, folks. That's, you know, whatever job you're doing doesn't have to be.
Whatever you're doing.
Yeah, whatever you're doing. You know, health is your number one priority. So.
Well, we appreciate all of those insights. DJ, was there any super chats that we missed?
No, that was the last one.
Did we not
from
call that
Robert
out?
Wild.
Do you see maybe one more question for Ian that we didn't get to? Because I saw a few earlier and I wasn't sure if there was.
There was.
I didn't have a chance to look at everything, but I didn't know if there was anything that would be a really good kind of wrap up question.
Well, I don't know if this is a overview question, but someone was asking another one about She-Hulk, and they were saying, did you get to see, or how many scenes on She-Hulk did you get to see filmed, and how did they compare to the finished show?
Quite honestly, I wasn't. I was always. I could see scenes being filmed, but I was a lot of times like on the periphery, like either like outside of like that house, like a house, like they would be like shooting inside of, or I'd be around the corner. So I didn't really witness like a whole lot of like dialogue heavy scenes. It was really cool though. The scene with like the fight scene with Daredevil on the roof. That was on a stage, that was on a blue screen, but they like painted the floor and, you know, made up everything to look like it was, you know, like a parking lot. That was really cool to see like the stunt guys like at work, like in, you know, setting up where they were going to place the mats and, you know, like, you know, hooking people up with wires and that kind of thing. There was one really cool day where they had the leapfrog guy. They had him like strung up on wires. And they were in front of a blue screen and they were doing takes of him like falling. And they just had this guy doing so many takes over and over of him just going, oh, wow. It got to be pretty funny after a while. So I felt kind of bad for him because I'm like, oh, he probably just wants like a drink of water or something like right now. But he's, you know, they would kind of, you know, he didn't really have time, you know, between takes, so he would just kind of dangle up there for a little while. So. Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I was just saying, guys that put themselves in that kind of position tend to be troopers about that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Like the poor stunt guy that fell down the stairs in Fight Club.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I'm glad you got to see some of that kind of stuff.
Hmm. No, it was really cool.
That must be thrilling to get to be there for that kind of thing. Ian, appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us about your being a PA on things, and I might pick your brain about more of that down the road. And appreciate you guys watching live and after the fact. As always, we're going to get going. I tried to make this an hour. That didn't work at all. DJ, thanks for sticking around. Appreciate you, man.
Oh, yeah, sure thing.
I was going to do another stream right after this tonight, and it's too late, so we're going to table that for another day. Austin and I are going to try to finish up our impromptu history of superhero movies series over just a couple more episodes. So we're going to do like a pre-COVID and post-COVID stream on that, and then call it a day. We have another plan for a lengthy superhero rewind off the cuff series that we're going to we're going to do shortly after that I think you guys are really going to enjoy, and we'll try to get to that pretty soon. Tomorrow night we're going to do a commentary on Ghostbusters Afterlife in preparation for the new one, and I haven't seen that since it came out, and I really didn't like it in the theater, so we'll see if I feel better about it on a second viewing. I don't know, but Frozen Empire looks cool potentially, and I'm kind of excited about that, even though I didn't care for the last one. So hopefully it wins me over on that whole thing a little bit. And anyway, in the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow night if you're so inclined, and next week hopefully. Otherwise, I was Captain Logan. This was DJ Martinez, and and thanks to our guest Ian. Ian, I guess before we close out, I should just ask, do you have anything to plug, or any social media, or anything you want people to know that you're doing right now?
Yeah. I mean, I have a YouTube channel. I have some shorts up there for anybody that's curious to take a look. They're of various quality. But a couple of them I'm pretty proud of. And right now I'm working on a script. I'm hoping to submit to a few things, come in the spring. So that's all I've got working on. So although I have been doing some more commercial work, so doing some promos for some like local businesses. So
well, best of luck to you, man.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on the show, man. Like it was a genuine pleasure. So,
yeah, of course. No problem. Least I can do. You've been watching us, supporting us for a long time, and I really appreciate that. And if you happen to have the time and you want to come out and help a day or two on my movie, you're more than welcome.
Hey, hit me up. Like,
you need a PA.
We just had another production meeting. Sorry, I'm out of it. A couple days ago for that, and we're working out some things that are going to be hilarious, and I'm very excited to finally get into that. We're going to start shooting next month. I think toward the end of the month we'll have our first shoot, and it's very exciting. We're figuring out equipment and stuff right now. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I was Captain Logan, and see you next week at the same time. Bye, folks.